Hi guys, it's Jess, and today I wanted to talk about caring for begonias. I feel like begonias tend to get quite a reputation for being quite fussy, and for a while I hadn't experienced that with my begonias, but I recently have. Because they had a case of some fungicide. What I wanted to go through and talk to you guys today was just how to care for your begonias, particularly when you suspect that they've got some fungicides, and some tips and tricks that I used to hopefully see these guys on the mend. Now, I've only got two of my begonias with me today. Firstly, my begonia listata. Look at this guy. He like matches my top. He's like a monster now. He used to be about this tall, and now look at him. It's like an arm. And then secondly, I've got my begonia rex. So this beautiful guy. Look at the silver. Now, both of these guys had a case of, well, what I suspected as fungal disease. So I might show you here. Can you see his leaves? If we can focus his leaves here. It's a bit brown. And this one, particularly this one, I've pruned them back a bit. So I've cut off all the leaves. I've cut off all the leaves that had this. But this is leaf rust, which is a type of fungal disease. It's looking as if the leaf is rusting. The other one, a different type, you can see a little bit on him here. Bird's eye. It's known as a bird's eye, which is a symptom of fungal disease. Here. You can see his leaves are a bit transparent there. Yeah, and this guy's a little bit roddy as well. But, oh, hello. A couple of weeks back, these guys, particularly this one, he was down to a nub, and he also had a case of root rot. So what I wanted to do today, these guys, thankfully, are looking a lot healthier these days, which I'm very pleased about. I've been treating them for their suspected fungal infections for about a month now, maybe a bit less. And so I just wanted to share with you some tips about how I've managed to hopefully get rid of their fungal infections for good. So I've sort of touched on the symptoms when you're suspecting your plant having a fungal disease. So the common ones I've spoken about are the yellowing or the browning of the leaf, as you saw on my listata, or where you see yellow spots, particularly where they sort of scattered around the leaf, as you saw on my rex, although there was only one spot now. So these are the symptoms that commonly point to your plant having a fungal infection. Now, with treatment, I think one of the things that is helpful is firstly understand, well, what do fungi thrive on, and what makes them grow and what makes them multiply. And by understanding that, you do the opposite to effectively stop them. So fungi, they're organisms, and the difference they have to plants is they need to feed off things, whereas sorry, that's silly, that's also plants. What I meant to say was fungus or fungi, they can't produce their own food. Now, what do I mean by that is, with plants, they have something called chlorophyll, which tends to give plants their green color, and Chlorophyll is the way for plants to absorb sunlight and then turn them into food. Now, fungus don't have chlorophyll, so they can't produce their own food, and therefore they feed off organic matter. Not all fungi are bad. Some fungus have symbiotic relationships with animals or with plants. Symbiotic sort of means that they work together to thrive. But often, I think the case with plants, fungi tend to be quite destructive, and they can destroy the host or the plant. So whenever you suspect your plant having a fungal infection, the best thing to do is treat it, because as we said, fungi tend to thrive, well, they need to consume organic matter, and what's the best organic matter than your plants? The fungi tend to also thrive in warm and moist temperatures, and then they spread by through the air, where their spores are released in the air, or through the soil. So if you have infected soil, and through contact. So for example, the rubbing and touching of infected plants. So how do we then treat it? Well, one of the things that we mentioned was fungi spread where an infected plant touches another plant. A common way to stop the spread of your fungi is obviously separating your infected plants from one another. So I had these guys in plant quarantine, so I placed them separately with my other plants to stop the spread. I cut off, or I trimmed and removed all the areas that had the in this case the leaf rust or the fungus infection. So I trimmed them way back just to remove where the fungi had infected the leaves. Another thing to do is to clear the pot of dead leaves. This would prevent the rotting of the leaves inside your pot, and we know that fungi, they feed off this rotting material, and they're part of that process of decomposing the leaves. Another tip that you can do is to try and minimize the moisture and the humidity for your plants, because fungi thrive in these type of environments. This is particularly tricky with begonias, because begonias also thrive in those type of environments. And I think a key thing to remember is, whilst your begonias like warm and humid environments, they don't necessarily like it on themselves, if that makes sense. So fungus thrive in environments where there's a lot of moisture, and the environment that they're living on is the host, which is your plant. And so what you want to do to reduce the moisture is to prevent watering or making your plant wet. And what I mean by that is, when you water your begonia in particular, try and water away from the stem. So you don't want to get the stem wet, oh dear. You don't want to get the stem wet when watering your plant. Watering with a watering can that has a narrow spout is often quite helpful, because then you can target the areas that you want to get wet. Another thing I did was sprayed all my plants with fungicide once every week or 7 to 10 days, which obviously was probably very helpful, because I was killing off the fungi. To reduce the humidity, what you can do is water your plant in the morning. You're giving the chance for any excess moisture to evaporate during the day. With begonias, they're probably a little bit more tricky to treat for fungal infections, because the plants themselves enjoy the environment where often fungal diseases thrive. So I guess in terms of prevention, what are some of the tips you can put in place to reduce the chance of a fungal infection coming back? The thing is getting the soil mix right. As we said, begonias like quite humid environments, but you don't want to create an environment which makes the begonia susceptible to rot or encourage fungal infections. And so choosing a soil that's airy is definitely helpful. Another thing is to prevent moisture from building is choosing a smaller pot for your begonia. Smaller pots hold less moisture and less water. Putting your plant in a smaller pot might be helpful. Last thing is choosing a sunnier spot for your begonia, and an area where it's a bit warmer can also prevent fungus from growing, because you're putting it in an environment which can allow the water to evaporate quickly with more sunlight. Yeah, I hope you found those tips helpful, and I'll see you soon. Bye! Okay. Well, in another